Hello and welcome back to Illuminated Movement Astrology. I'm Nikki, your astrologer, talking about the full moon in Aries coming up on October the 6th or 7th, depending on where you live in the world. Now, this full moon is a super moon, meaning it's going to be closer to the Earth, and we are also going to be feeling its effects quite strongly. So if the previous eclipse season that we've just been going through didn't hammer you enough, we've got more energy coming our way. And that's going to be the theme for the rest of 2025 and into 2026. So this full moon is unique because it also pulls back to earlier this year in 2025, around the end of March, when we were having that eclipse season. So whatever was begun earlier this year in the springtime around March is coming to a full point now with this full moon in Aries. So you want to take a look at the Aries part of your chart to see where this energy may be hitting you. I'm going to pull up the chart and I'm going to look at it in more detail and talk about how the energy is presenting itself and what we can do to best work with the energy and then roll with the punches as they're coming. So let's take a look. All right, so here is the chart for our full moon in Aries. So we're talking about the moon here at 14 degrees of Aries, and it is opposite the sun in Libra at 14 degrees of Libra. So those are the moon components themselves. Now, Aries traditionally has to do with courage, beginnings, leading the charge, pioneering, trailblazing, being sort of blunt and eager, and maybe a little bit naive, maybe a little bit of that fool card from the tarot, because we need a little bit of foolishness, right, to begin something totally new. Now, what's interesting about this is we have to look at the ruler of this moon, which would be Mars. So if we look at Mars, Mars is in Scorpio over here on the right. It's at 10 degrees of Scorpio, and it's making quite a bit of noise on this chart. The other piece that I want to, well, actually, there's two more pieces that I want to take a look at here, is this yod, which is pointing down over here to Mercury at 0 degrees of Scorpio. And then also we have this square from Mars and Pluto. Okay, so those things are important. And then the last bit, of course, is this Neptune and Saturn ongoing story, making aspects again to Pluto and to Uranus. Uranus is also involved in that yod position. So whoo, that's a lot that's going on there. So going back to the full moon, okay? So whatever was begun in the spring is now reaching a culmination. Full moons are about being able to see more clearly something that was begun. Okay, so we begin at the new moon, it reaches a peak of the full moon, and then it starts waning back down and we begin again. So hopefully at this point, we're getting some clarity. Either way, this could be, something that came to a head where we say, okay, this is great. Whatever I started, I'm really beginning to see the fruits of my labor. And I want to keep putting energy and passion and drive, which is that Mars and Aries connection here, into this thing that I've begun. Now, it could be the flip side. It could be that you started something in the spring and you're like, oh man, pump the brakes. I don't want to keep going down this path. This isn't working. Okay, in which case Mars is also incredibly helpful here because Mars wields a sword, right? Swords can cut things off, draw the line in the sand and say, all right, it's been great, or maybe it hasn't been great, but can't go forward anymore. And then Mars can also help you get the drive and the movement to move on. Okay, so all of this is really, really great. Now, Mars being in Scorpio, let's take a look at that for a second. So Mars over here. Mars is in its own sign because Mars is the traditional ruler of Scorpio. And one of the amazing pieces about Scorpio is its ability to see all the way through, to penetrate all the way down, laser focused into someone or something. Now, that can be unnerving if you're the one receiving that energy and you're not quite used to being looked at in such a thorough, vulnerable, or maybe even feeling invasive kind of way. But it can be incredibly helpful if you're on the other side of it. So being able to really see through a situation. Scorpio is incredible at being able to sniff out the BS, right? It's also part of why people don't always like Scorpio energy, is because Scorpio will call you on your bull crap, right? They'll just cut right to the chase, say the thing that's not supposed to be said out loud, because Scorpio also rules things that are the taboo, the things, again, in the underworld that we don't necessarily want to deal with, right? They're not part of polite society, as it were. But what's great is we can really actually look at the heart of the matter. We can get down into the nitty gritty and have the courage to actually look at the things that aren't working and be able to make some changes. So with Mars in Scorpio ruling over this moon in Aries, okay, this is why I'm talking about this, because the rulers of the lunation of this full moon are extremely important. If Mars was in a different sign, like if Mars was in, let's say, Pisces or something, it would have a very different flavor that's underlying this moon, okay? But with Mars in the underworld here in its home sign in Scorpio, we're talking about things that we are passionate about. So Aries, as a fire sign, all of the fire signs are passionate. They all have to do with spirit and intuition and heart in some kind of way. The root of courage, the word courage, is heart. So we need something here to, in a sense, light up our heart, to ignite our heart, to get us moving, to get our blood going, hopefully not boiling over, but it's a possibility. So sometimes that's what gets us to move, right? Is just being pissed off about a subject and saying no more. That's also valid on this full moon. But what we really want to do here is be able to connect with, what does courage mean to you? What are you passionate about? Where do you need to put your energy? Where do you want Mars, your own personal kind of like army, to go to work for you? Where do you want to do that? What beginning, what Aries, what trailblazing, what pioneering, what clarity do you need in the Aries part of your chart? So let's say Aries was in your 7th house. That's the house of relationships. Where do you need clarity? Is the relationship you're in maybe not working? And that doesn't have to be a romantic relationship. It could be a business partnership. Where is it that maybe you need more time for yourself? Where maybe do you need to create better relationships and partnership, because Scorpio is a relational sign. It's about merging and going deep, right? So the sun in Libra is about initiating. It starts relationship. It gets the conversation going. But in Scorpio is where we take things to the next level and they get deeper. Okay, it's the crumbs at the bottom of the toaster. We find out what's really underneath, behind the closed doors of a person that we are involved with, right? Whether, again, that's romantic or business or whatever the situation is for you. If you have Aries, let's say in your 2nd house, that would be your house of values, part of what you do for work. Where is that? Where do you need maybe more courage to either go out on your own or ask for that promotion? Or perhaps it's putting in extra work into a different field that's adjacent to the work that you're doing, and really having to go in and get some experience, really take in some more information before you make a final decision on where you're heading. So these are some of the things that could be coming up on this full moon. So let me clear this out here so we don't get super confused. All right, so I want to talk about this yod next, because yods are fairly rare. They are also known as the finger of God. So in essence, what it's doing is it's pointing a tremendous amount of energy into one spot on the chart. So where this is coming from is Uranus in Gemini at 1 degree retrograde. Oops, that one, sorry. That one's coming later. Where are we? Oh, there we are. Neptune at 0 Aries, which is also retrograde, and it's pointing down, making this finger of God, this narrow triangle, to Mercury at 0 of Scorpio. Okay, so we've got all this energy of Neptune, of Uranus, funneling down through Mercury. Now, Mercury is the messenger god. So what you can expect on this full moon is some kind of messaging, whether that's direct communication, it's a conversation that needs to be had, whether it's connecting with a person, a place, or a thing that you need to further your journey or to make this fullness of this full moon complete for you, or whether it's going into kind of the underworld and maybe you'll be receiving something intuitively through a dream state or through a meditative state, or Scorpio loves being in the water as well. Maybe it's, you go out to your lake or an ocean or for a swim or even a shower, and you get some kind of information in that way. Mercury is going to bring us something here, and it's at 0 degrees. So all of these are towards the beginning. We've got 0 Neptune, we've got 1 degree on that Uranus, and then we've got Mercury. Now, Uranus and Mercury are related in the sense that they have to do with mind and understanding and knowledge. And so what's coming through here is some kind of big knowledge, information piece that you need. Okay, again, it's Scorpio. So it is going to be something that is maybe more emotionally driven, whatever emotion that ends up being, because again, Scorpio rules things that maybe we don't necessarily like rage or jealousy or envy. It doesn't have to be, but it's possible that it comes through one of those kinds of modalities. We could also be talking about something like a betrayal being made obvious at this point. Now, this could be something that affects you directly, or it could be something that's happening around you. Perhaps it's happening to your spouse or a family member or a friend. That's all possible here, but there's more information that's coming through. Neptune's going to make it a little bit more funky because Neptune tends to dissolve things unless we can tap into the frequency of Neptune, which is a little bit difficult depending on what your relationship is to things like meditation, receiving the muse, being able to channel energy. And I don't necessarily mean like talking to entities, although that's become certainly very popular during especially the Neptune and Pisces that we've had for the last 14 years, that transit. Be really careful with things like that. I say this, I think every time I talk about Neptune and Pisces, is just because something has become popular, and there's so many people in the spiritual community claiming that they are channeling entities, and they probably are, but do they have clarity on what it is they're actually channeling? Because in a sense, it's a lost art. It's something that has gotten so distorted and fragmented over the last 2,000 years, especially with the age of Pisces, that either yourself or other people may not understand what it is they're actually connecting to. And there are entities that present themselves as light beings that aren't necessarily for the betterment of humanity. And if you know, you know. If you don't know, get in the know. Start understanding, learning from people who have better knowledge and grounded experience and understanding of how we actually work with the non-physical realms. Okay. So that's a possibility coming through for some of you with this yod, is getting that clarity of like, hey, am I listening to the right things, or in a sense, communicating with the right people or places or even entities, if that is the case. So just always be careful there. Now, on a bigger world stage kind of picture, there's so much changing. And this also has to do with, I'm going to pull in Pluto over here now. So I'm going to talk about this little minor triangle again, this blue spot up at the top. So that'd be Neptune. We're talking about Uranus now, and we're talking about Pluto and this blue triangle that they make. So this is going to be going on all the way through most of 2026 as well. These 3 outer planets that affect humanity as a whole, they affect the collective. So this is energy that everybody is receiving in some kind of way. It's affecting and changing how we interact as a society, globally, humanistically, etc. So there's a lot of people who are waking up, thankfully, right? There are some that will stay asleep. Remember, it's not necessarily our jobs to awaken people. It's definitely not our jobs to force people to awaken. They have to make that choice for themselves. So there's a split getting more and more and more obvious. There's many splits actually getting more and more obvious right now between those who are awake, those who are asleep, um, those who are listening to false realities, those who are in denial, those who are projecting and disowning things about themselves, those who are intentionally creating division. All of this is being amplified right now. And with this full moon, with Aries here, Aries is more of an aggressive energy, right? It leads by the head. It gets in your face a bit. So we have with Mars, especially here, and Scorpio, there may be events that continue to happen that get us emotionally revved up to the point where we want to just charge in head first without thinking and react to a situation that may or may not be true. So, what we all need to do is take a collective beat, take a collective pause when we receive messages and information, and take a moment and check in. Does it resonate? Does it check out? Give something that's really emotionally charged, give it like 24 hours if you can. See what it's like the next day, because things are happening at a rapid pace. And again, there's so much, I hate using these words, but they're the words that are available: misinformation, disinformation, lies, illusions, AI, fake stuff, things that are happening behind the scenes. Pluto in Aquarius is exposing all of these, in essence, secret societies, secret elitist groups, think tanks, all of that kind of stuff that has been permeating the planet for a very long time. It's been happening since the last time Pluto was in Aquarius and the things that happened there, right? We've got this Aries Neptune piece. Again, it makes it kind of hard because Neptune may get a little foggy. It may get a little overzealous. It maybe wants to jump in full swing, come out, locked and loaded into an ideology. It could be a religion. It could be something of that nature where it's like we feel like we need to have a battle, in a sense, a battle royale. And part of this is just what needs to play out, but part of it is we need to get smarter about discerning what's going on. Okay, so we need to also pause and take a beat. Now, Scorpio is really, really good at that. So actually, Scorpio can pause, think about something, hold it before it takes action. Okay, so that's actually helpful on this full moon with this Aries impulsive energy that's just like beating the drum here. Okay, so all of that continues to be incredibly important. Again, we're getting a lot of messages, a lot of information, in some ways, too much information. And we may need to unplug a bit or take a step back before we just rush in head first and decide what we're going to do. So to kind of recap here, we've got this moon in Aries, right? Opposite sun in Libra. So we have a tremendous amount of energy coming from the spring of this year, from that eclipse season. Something from the spring is coming to a head now. It's coming to a full point, and we are being tasked with getting clarity, getting information, figuring out how to take action and how to move forward with things that really matter to us and come from our heart, that may in some way require us to have courage to move on, whether that is continuing in the way that we've been going and continuing to build and structure and create the new earth, the new job, the new relationship, the new diet, the new spiritual journey, whatever it is for you, that we may need that. Or it could be that the opposite is true, and that there are ways in which we need to cut ties and cut off the things that are no longer working. And we'll get a nice boost of courage, of energy, of action-oriented impulses to help us do that. Okay. Again, just be aware of a lot of confusion, information overload, or the way in which people respond to things. And maybe, it's you. I know that I have my own responses that I'm working on all of the time, in ways that have to deal with denial, that have to deal with projection, rejection, splitting, right? Those kinds of things. So just be on the lookout that for this full moon, because it is definitely a power packed moon. All right, I hope that was helpful for you. Let me know in the comments what's going on in the Aries section of your chart, or if you're not sure what that part of that chart is, just what's going on for you in general. How does it feel out there in the world? Feels like there's a lot of energy, a lot of friction, right? And that is going to ramp up a little bit. So we have to be able to work with it and discern it, listen to our own hearts, take a beat, channel the energy where it needs to go, so that hopefully we're creating a new structure for the future that's based on our own sovereignty, our own ability to self-regulate and to integrate before we move forward. Otherwise, we're going to get caught up in other people's agendas, false realities, including false entities, right, that may be presenting themselves as altruistic or positive or in some way helpful, when the opposite is actually true. So I'm wishing you tons of clarity on this full moon. Thanks so much for watching. Until next time, take care. Bye bye.